I'm going to cover the steps on how to change a fill valve in a toilet, and I'm going to take this old style ball cock and I'm going to replace it with a newer style Fluidmaster. And the only tools you're really going to need are a large adjustable pliers, an adjustable wrench. I'm going to use a sponge to mop out some of the extra water once we flush it. And then we're going to shut off the valve and remove the supply line. So I put a little pan underneath this to catch any water from the bottom. So our first step is going to be shut off the valve and disconnect the supply line. So I turned the valve clockwise, and this is a full turn, multi-turn valve. So I have this shut off, and now the next step we're going to flush the toilet and hold the handle up and remove as much water as you can from the tank. And now we have a little bit left, but it's actually quite a bit that once we remove this valve it would flood the floor. So I'm just going to use the sponge and I'm going to mop out as much as we can. So using the sponge, I removed the water from the tank, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to actually, because I'm going to change the supply line, I'm going to remove the supply line from the top. I'm going to use the large adjustable pliers, and then from the bottom the adjustable wrench. If you're going to reuse your supply line, you just really need to disconnect the top nut here, and you can leave this connected. But in this case, I'm going to remove the supply line and put a new one on. So now I'm just going to unscrew it from the shutoff, and that's why the pan is handy here. And now that's free. So underneath, there's just one nut that holds the fill valve in place. So using the adjustable pliers, I'm just going to turn the nut counterclockwise, and that allows us to pull the fill valve straight out. So once that nut is removed from underneath the fill valve, all you have to do is grab the fill valve, and it's going to pull straight out. And you can see how bad the washer was here. And the top, the seal on the top was going bad and actually spraying water out of the top of the tank. So this new fill valve has a style where the float is built onto the body of the fill valve, and what's nice is this really pushes straight up and turns it off very solid. What's also nice is you can push this ring up, and this will adjust from 9 inches to 14 inches. So depending on how tall or how deep your tank is, you can adjust it to the size. And right where this is, it should do a nice job. You want it to be just about the height or a little bit higher than the top of this, and the inset inside the tank top is going to allow a little bit of room. So I like the height right here, and now this comes with a rubber gasket that you can pull off, and you have to press out this center piece, and once you pull this out, this washer slides onto the bottom of the fill valve. And this is what's going to keep it from leaking. And then you have one nut that you're going to put on the bottom of the tank, and that's going to hold it in place. And this nut is if you're using a different type of supply line, where I'm going to show you the style that we're going to use. So we will not use this nut. And then we have the tube that's going to go into the overflow, and this will fill the bowl. So we have our gasket on the bottom, and we're going to put our fill tube into this little barb on the top of the valve, and now we're going to put the whole valve inside the tank, and we're going to face this so it's facing into the tank. It's not going to get obstructed on anything, and we need this tube to go into the overflow tube here, and this one has a little area where it catches the tube. If it didn't have that, your fill valve is going to come with this piece that you clip on to the pipe, and then you're going to put your tube into the top of this, and this will keep the tube from going too deep into this, which could actually siphon some water out of the tank. Now that we have the fill valve in place, I'm just going to take this one nut underneath the tank, and we're just going to tighten it up in place, and then I'm going to snug it up with adjustable pliers. So I tighten the nut on the fill valve, and I put this tube into the overflow pipe here, and now the next step, we're going to put a new supply line on. So when you're buying a new supply line for a toilet, you need to make sure it says toilet supply line rather than faucet, and you're looking for something that has 7/8 on the top. because the fill valves for toilets are 7/8 on this side. And then on the bottom, connecting to your shutoff, you need to know whether it's 3/8 compression, which is the most common, 1/2-inch compression, or 1/2-inch iron pipe. So if you plan on changing this and you don't know your sizes, it's always good to bring the old one into the hardware store with you. So when you're buying a supply line, if you don't know the exact length, or if they don't have one the exact length to fit in here, what you would want to do is go longer. And all you want to do is put a nice soft loop into it. You don't want anything that's too tight or you'll ruin the supply line. So it's better to go a little longer and put a nice soft loop into it, and that's going to do a real nice job for you. And it gives you the ability to pick up something. If you don't know the exact size, you can go a little bit longer and it's going to be easy to install. So I tighten the nut on the top of the supply line and also on the bottom, and we're just going to turn the valve on and see how it turned out. So we have the fill valve on, and it did a nice job of filling the water just below the top of this overflow pipe. And if you need to make any adjustment, there's a little nut here that you can adjust for the water, and you can also adjust the whole body from 9 to 14 inches. So very easy, do-it-yourself project. You can get it done in about 15 minutes.